Once upon a time, in a small suburban town, lived Sarah, a compassionate and loving mother. Her only son, Jake, was her pride and joy. Since he was a little boy, Sarah had dreamed of the days when she could proudly watch him succeed, marry, and perhaps give her grandchildren. But things took an unexpected turn. Jake fell in love with a woman named Rebecca. Sarah, at first glance, was taken in by Rebecca's charismatic smile and seemingly warm personality. Everyone assumed that Jake had found himself a perfect match. However, beneath Rebecca's charming exterior lay subtle intricacies of manipulation. At the beginning of their relationship, Jake's visits to his mother were regular. They would spend weekends reminiscing, gardening, or simply enjoying each other's company. But as Jake's relationship with Rebecca deepened, those visits grew less frequent. Sarah noticed the change, feeling a pang of loneliness she hadn't expected. One afternoon, an insightful conversation with an old friend shed some light on Sarah's concerns. "Listen, Sarah," her friend Margaret said gently. "I've noticed something about relationships like the one Jake and Rebecca have. Sometimes, a partner can be controlling or manipulative, isolating their loved ones from family. You need to look out for these control dynamics." Alarmed, Sarah began to piece together the subtle signs. There were minor changes that snowballed. Jake started canceling plans, using Rebecca's demands as excuses, and his warmth seemed to wane. Whenever Sarah tried to discuss her feelings or the change in their relationship, Jake seemed dismissive, as if parroting someone else's concerns. Unbeknownst to Sarah, Rebecca had quietly instigated these changes. She was extraordinarily adept at manipulating Jake's emotions, prefacing conversations with remarks like, "If you truly love me, you should understand," or "Your mother's influence is unhealthy for us." Jake, driven by the desire to prove his love, found himself entangled in a web of coercion, gradually pulling away from his mother. For Sarah, the hurt deepened each time her son left abruptly after an argument, Rebecca often being a silent figure behind the discussion, texting or on the phone, whispering her influences. And each time, Sarah felt the invisible walls building between her and Jake. The emotional isolation grew, and Jake's fear of disapproval and loss of affection from Rebecca became palpable. He was torn between the person he loved, who filled his everyday life, and the mother who had nurtured him for decades. But every time Rebecca implied a slight disobedience from what she desired, a change of demeanor reminded Jake who held significance in his world now. Sarah decided to learn more about these dynamics, attending support groups and educating herself, discovering that she was not alone. She realized the importance of patience, understanding, and, most importantly, keeping an open channel for communication. Hope clung to the idea that Jake would recognize the coercive environment he was trapped in. It wasn't easy. Sarah felt the ache of a mother seeing her child bound by invisible strings. But she learned persistence was key. An unguarded moment years later revealed to Jake the true extent of Rebecca's manipulative nature. Suddenly, his mother's unconditional love and effervescent warmth became the light pulling him out of his isolation. Jake's journey back to his mother was not swift. It was incremental, marked by tentative steps and uncertain conversations. But with each reconciliatory effort, every honest moment shared, Jake began rediscovering the solid ground he had lost. In the end, Sarah's patience and unwavering love gradually dissolved the silence and restored the bond that isolation once tried to break. Though they knew navigating relationships with Rebecca would require effort and boundaries, the healing process inaugurated a new chapter in their lives. The story of Sarah and Jake became one many would hear when discussing manipulation and the redemptive power of enduring love, echoing a message of hope for families caught in coercive dynamics.